According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to, victims including minors, such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre. May she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada.
When a congressman names Epstein's elite ties on the record and the FBI chief still deflects, it's not silence, it's shielding. Watch it unfold. The gentleman, he's back.
So I've got 4 documents I'd like to introduce into the record. The first one is Jeffrey Epstein's sick story played out for years in plain sight. And Acosta is quoted in here saying, "I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone." The second document is entitled, "What Epstein's Bodyguard Warned About His CIA Connections." The third document is from Fox Digital. It's titled, "Epstein's Private Calendar Reveals Planned Meetings with Obama Admin Official CIA Chief." And the last document is Wall Street Journal article that highlights Ehud Barak's 36 meetings with Jeffrey Epstein. He was the former Prime Minister of Israel and head of military intelligence for Israel. It may have held that title when he met Epstein, and then, yes.
Without objection, the gentleman will hold for a second. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one UC request. This is Judge Engelmeyer's decision from August in U.S. versus Epstein, stating the government's 100,000 pages of Epstein files dwarfs the 70-odd pages of Epstein grand jury materials.
Without objection, the gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Patel, I watched some of your Senate hearing yesterday when Senator Kennedy asked you, you've seen most of the files, who, if anyone, did Epstein traffic these women to besides himself? You replied, according to the transcript, there is no credible information that he trafficked them to anyone else. You also said somewhere in the hearing and here today that the problem is that the case files are constrained by limited search warrants from 2006 to 2007 and that the non-prosecution agreement hamstrung future investigations. Those constraints only apply to Southern District of Florida. They do not apply to Southern District of New York, the location of the 2019 sex trafficking indictment, which produced many things, including a series of FD302 documents. According to victims who cooperated with the FBI in that investigation, these documents in FBI possession, your possession, detail at least 20 men, including Mr. Jess Staley, CEO of Barclays Bank, who Jeffrey Epstein trafficked victims to, victims including minors, such as Virginia Roberts Giuffre. May she rest in peace. That list also includes at least 19 other individuals, one Hollywood producer worth a few $100 million, one royal prince, one high-profile individual in the music industry, one very prominent banker, one high-profile government official, one high-profile former politician, one owner of a car company in Italy, one rock star, one magician, at least 6 billionaires, including a billionaire from Canada. We know these people exist in the FBI files, the files that you control. I don't know exactly who they are, but the FBI does. Have you launched any investigations into any of these people, and have you seen these 302 documents?
Sir, I have asked my FBI agents to review the entirety of the Epstein files and bring forth any credible information, and we're working with Congress not only to divulge that information and produce it to you, but any investigations that arise from any credible investigation will be brought. There have been no new materials brought to me launching a new indictment.
So is the loophole here, or is it your assertion that these victims aren't credible, that the 302s maybe didn't produce credible statements that rise to a probable cause?
It's not my assertion, sir. It's the assertion of 2 different United States attorneys' offices from 3 separate administrations who investigated those same materials in live time.
Are the 302 documents in the FBI's possession?
They reviewed all that, yes, sir.
And so have you reviewed those 302 documents where the victims name the people who victimized them?
If I personally know, but the FBI has.
So how can you sit here and in front of the Senate and say there are no names?
I said
I named one
information-
today.
I said we are not in the practice at the Department of Justice FBI of releasing victims' names. That is not what we do. We are also not in the habit of releasing incredible information. That's not what we do. But multiple authorities have looked at the entirety of what we have.
Okay, I got to move on here. Were you present when the AG had the White House event when she released the binders to the social media influencers?
I was, yes.
So if you're willing to meet with social media influencers who stood to benefit from the sensational and sad stories of these victims, will you meet with the victims as well?
The FBI will meet with anyone who has new information.
Will you personally meet with them?
The FBI and the professionals who are handling the cases will.
Were you instructed that it was important to release the documents to the Oversight Committee on the day of my introduction of the discharge petition to release these files?
I don't know what day that was, so no.
Well, they were released that day, and there were victims' names who weren't redacted because they were in such a rush, and the victims are not happy about that. Have you investigated any of the CIA connections? Have you seen the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein? And if you wanted to see it, would they show it to you?
Well, I can speak for the FBI, and that's presuming there's a CIA case file, and I've reviewed everything that the interagency, not I, the FBI, that was provided to us.
Would you be willing to look at the CIA file on Jeffrey Epstein?
If there is such a file, and if it has not already been turned over to the FBI will look at any new investigative.
What you just witnessed wasn't politics. It was protection in real time. What unfolded today in that hearing room wasn't just another oversight ritual. It was a rare moment of clarity, one that pierced through the fog of bureaucracy and landed a direct blow on the wall of silence surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein case. Congressman Thomas Massie didn't come armed with conspiracy theories. He came with documents, receipts, names, and on the other side of the table, FBI Director Kosh Patel, a man whose job, at least on paper, is to seek truth, enforce accountability, and protect citizens. Yet his performance today revealed something else entirely: how institutions dance around truth when it threatens power. Massie asked what millions have wondered for years. Who was Epstein really connected to? Were there files naming the powerful men he trafficked victims to? Have those names been investigated? And if not, why? These aren't new questions, but what's new is that they're finally being asked in public in the halls of Congress on the record, and the answers, they didn't come. Patel didn't deny the existence of files. He didn't push back against the victim statements or even challenge the credibility of the names raised, which reportedly include a royal, a media mogul, elite bankers, and billionaires. He simply said he hadn't personally reviewed the files that other departments had, that no credible evidence was found. But credibility in cases like this isn't an objective truth. It's a shield, a wall built by the same agencies being asked to investigate themselves. It's a word that sounds like transparency but functions like insulation. And this isn't new. Long before Epstein's mysterious 2019 death, this case was tangled with whispers of intelligence ties. Remember when former Labor Secretary Alex Acosta said he was told Epstein belonged to intelligence, that he was untouchable? That's not a rumor. That was a cabinet member admitting that justice had a no-go zone. And so here we are, years later, and the pattern continues. Files sealed, names redacted, victims unheard, the public misled, and the people with the power to expose it all suddenly forgetful, suddenly hands off. When Director Patel says, "I haven't personally reviewed the documents," what he's really saying is, don't look to me for answers. That's not accountability, that's strategic ambiguity. And let's be clear, victims aren't tips. They're not sources, they're survivors, living, breathing people whose pain continues while the system looks away. They don't need polite deferrals, they need justice. What happened today was not just a political exchange, it was a snapshot of how far institutions will go to protect power. When an FBI director under oath refuses to acknowledge what's in his own files, we're not watching law enforcement, we're watching institutional rot. This is why it matters. Because if truth is filtered through the lens of political convenience, if justice is paused whenever it risks embarrassing the powerful, then it's not justice at all. So ask yourself, what happens when the gatekeepers of truth are the very people keeping it hidden? If you think power shouldn't be a shield from accountability, then don't let this moment pass. Stay informed, stay loud, ask what they won't answer, subscribe to Carter TYT, where we expose the silence and demand the truth,